there. My name is Katherine Beem, and I'm managing editor here at Investing Daily, and I'm also editor of Investing Daily Insider. I'm also a long-time believer in the profit potential of the legal cannabis market. I know a lot of people have questions about investing in pot, so I'm happy to have my friend and colleague John Persinos, our marijuana market expert, here on Zoom to give us some answers. John, it's always great to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time to sit down with us today.
Kat, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. As an editor, you're the hardest working editor in show business. So let's get going with your questions.
All right, let's get started. John, those of us who are advocates of marijuana law reform sometimes feel like legalization on a federal level will never happen. So let's be honest here. Do you think the federal legalization of adult use marijuana is on the horizon? And if so, how soon do you think it will happen?
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I really do think it's on the horizon. I can understand why marijuana advocates and investors would be frustrated. Several bills are still pending in Congress to lift federal restrictions against marijuana. What's the pattern has been that the House passes them, and then they get stymied in the Senate. The Senate in recent years has been more conservative than the House. But in the wake of the midterm elections, where the red wave did not materialize, I think that the pro-marijuana Democrats will still have the upper hand in Washington. And there are several bills pending that would deschedule marijuana, which means that remove marijuana from Schedule 1 under the Controlled Substances Act. And there are also some banking bills that would make it easier for banks to do business with marijuana. But the key here is that I think many of these bills are stalking horses for what eventually will be an omnibus bill. All these bills will get rolled into one sweeping package, and this package will contain legislation that doesn't have to do with marijuana, but which is necessary to pass, like lifting the debt ceiling or whatever, proposals that are popular. And then the marijuana proposals will be all rolled into one omnibus bill. This is how Washington often gets legislation passed. I think that's happening. I think that's going to happen. And, I used to be a staffer in Congress, and my sources on Capitol Hill tell me that is the intention of Senate Majority Leader. As I speak, he's still Majority Leader. We'll see what happens after the Georgia runoff in December. But Majority Leader Schumer, that's his plan for marijuana. So I think marijuana legalization on the federal level is going to happen in 2023. But in the meantime, under our system of federalism, the states have not been idle. They're not waiting for Uncle Sam. They've been stepping into the breach and legalizing marijuana on their own. And this past Tuesday in the midterms of the November 8 voting, we saw two major states, Maryland and Missouri, legalize recreational marijuana. And that has created a vast new markets for legal pot.
Cannabis stocks have had a really rough time of it in 2022, to say the least.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
They've fallen heavily from the sector's peak in the first quarter of 2021. Do you think that pot stocks have the potential to meet or even eclipse those earlier gains, John?
Yeah, I do. Pot stocks have been in a slump. It's no secret, but they've been the victim of the overall bear market. They've been caught in the downdraft. While marijuana stocks have been slumping, by the same token, marijuana sales have been soaring. Marijuana has become a consumer staple. It's a gotta have it product. Polls show that 68% of Americans want to see legalized marijuana. That number in 1969 during the Nixon administration, and Nixon was the fellow who launched the war on drugs, that number was 12%. So more and more Americans view marijuana as a necessity. And polls also show that they view marijuana as less socially harmful than alcohol or tobacco. There's been a real sea change in public opinion and in consumer behavior when it comes to marijuana. So I think it's inevitable that intrinsically sound marijuana stocks will rebound. But yeah, they're in a slump right now, but we're in the teeth of a bear market. And I also think that bear market is losing ferocity. The latest inflation reports show that the inflation is cooling. The CPI, all item CPI and the core CPI for October came in much milder than expectations, and which triggered a rally on Wall Street. And also the midterm elections results, which showed increasing legalization of marijuana. 2 states, Maryland, Missouri, and 5 cities in Texas, they all legalized marijuana. That triggered a rally in pot stocks. So pot stocks are on the cusp of another bull market. The time to invest in pot stocks is now, while they're still at bargain valuations.
While we're on thinking on this subject, let's talk numbers, John. How much money do you think investors who get in now stand to make when it does become legal?
Well, but just speaking generally, in broad brush terms, we're seeing gains of doubling your money, triple gains, quadruple gains. I mean, I'm talking in generalities here, but pot stocks, many of them are mid cap or small cap, and so it's easier for them to move the needle. And when a profit catalyst comes along, like the midterm elections, and certainly if marijuana is legalized on the federal level, that'll be a gigantic profit catalyst. You can see the select pot stocks shooting into the stratosphere. The key is picking quality stocks, and that's where Marijuana Profit Alert comes in. That's where my new book, The Wide World of Weed and Psychedelics, comes in, a book that you expertly edited. Thank you very much. And, my book and my new trading service, the Marijuana Profit Alert, they offer specific actionable advice on how to buy the best pot stocks available. Because, you have to be selective. I mean, you have to be selective in any sector, but that's especially true in marijuana because it's a volatile industry and there are a lot of good marijuana stocks out there, but there are also a lot of penny stocks. And the green rush, as you'd expect in a boom industry, in a nascent industry, it has attracted a lot of shady characters who aren't transparent about their financials. And you can make a boatload of money in marijuana. You can also lose your shirt. So you've got to do your due diligence, got to do your homework. You got to look at the underlying fundamentals. And that's where I come in. And that's where Marijuana Profit Alert comes in, and my book.
So, John, a lot of cannabis investors believe in the next frontier here are psychedelics like psilocybin mushrooms and LSD, the next frontier for profits after marijuana. What potential do you see here with psychedelics?
Well, I think this is where a part of the interview where we need to cue the music from White Rabbit. All kidding aside, what's amazing to me is how psychedelics has entered the medical mainstream, how big pharma is jumping onto the bandwagon, because more and more empirical medical research shows that psilocybin, which is the psychoactive ingredient in magic mushrooms, LSD, and ayahuasca can tangibly improve physical and psychological well-being. That psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, they're supplementing talk therapy with psychedelics therapy. And for instance, Johns Hopkins, which is the gold standard in medical care, just launched a new psychedelics institute. So research is continuing at pace in the benefits of psychedelics. And as we all know, psychedelics was all the rage in the 60s. And then the war on drugs came along, and then all this promising research in psychedelics, all of this testing and all these favorable results about what psychedelics can do for people, it all got lost. It was the research centers were shut down, research was shut down. And so there were several lost decades of research and investment in the psychedelics industry. And now it's undergoing a renaissance. And it's quite a remarkable thing to see LSD become legal in more and more localities. In the midterm elections, the state of Colorado just legalized psilocybin. I never thought I'd live to see such things. When LSD and magic mushrooms are being microdosed by soccer moms, Silicon Valley executives, it's a brave new world. And Big Pharma has taken notice and is plowing billions of dollars into research trying to develop new drugs that are based on psychedelics that could treat ailments that are unresponsive to conventional therapies.
I think for patients, psilocybin and other psychedelics can be a life changer, but I think there's the potential here for investors for it to be a life changer in terms of profiting and money as well.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to investing, one of the key things you want to do is to spot a mega trend and get ahead of it, to be proactive, to get in on the ground floor early. That's how fortunes are made. So Imagine if you'd been able to invest in the oil industry when John D. Rockefeller first struck oil and when he was building his Standard Oil empire. Well, it's sort of the same thing with marijuana and psychedelics right now. I mean, it's become a multi-billion-dollar global industry, but there's so much more room for growth because it's still illegal on the federal level. So marijuana has undergone this enormous growth, and it's still banned on the federal level. So imagine when the federal ban is lifted, the potential for just rocket-type growth.
And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that your service, your new service, the Marijuana Profit Alert, will also alert readers to profit opportunities with psychedelics, not just cannabis, correct?
Right. That's right. That's right. And you're seeing more and more startups going public that are investing in psychedelics, which is remarkable because psychedelics are also classified as Schedule 1 and banned under the Controlled Substances Act. But federal and state regulators are loosening the reins for researchers. The Department of Health and Human Services has overtly stated that they're working towards making it much, much easier for testing labs and scientists to obtain LSD and psilocybin and other psychedelic substances, to obtain these substances legally for the purposes of medical research. So we are witnessing a political, economic, financial, and investment revolution. And the time to get in on it is now. And my trading service pinpoints specific stocks that I think are your best bets right now in these areas that we're discussing right now.
Very exciting, very exciting. Now, this may seem like such a silly question, but I hear it all the time, like from my mother. Do you need to be a cannabis user to understand the market enough to be an effective investor?
Well, speaking of mothers, my mom, who's 90 years old and pretty old-fashioned, she recently asked me if she should take cannabis for her arthritic pains. Here in the state of Maryland, where I live, marijuana was just legalized. Now, when your mother, who used to search my room looking for contraband when I was a teenager, when your mother asks you, should I take cannabis for my arthritis, a product has entered the mainstream. All right. No, you don't have to to answer your question, you don't have to partake of marijuana. You don't have to go on LSD trips to invest in these substances. You don't have to smoke cigarettes to invest in so-called sin stocks like Philip Morris. By the way, big tobacco is investing heavily in marijuana because they see the handwriting on the wall. Tobacco is becoming a pariah, and marijuana is increasingly viewed as a benign drug. That's a flip of the script that is quite remarkable. So the Marlboro man is becoming a pariah, and marijuana is supplanting him. And big tobacco realizes that tobacco use and sales will continue their inexorable decline, and they want to make up for those lost customers by investing in marijuana. So they are using their ample cash reserves to buy up smaller marijuana companies and integrating them into their product pipelines. And one of the key ways to make profits in the marijuana industry is to spot these takeovers ahead of time, to figure out which companies will be M&A targets. And that's some of the homework that I do for investors. I scour the investment landscape looking for companies that are ripe for takeover, smaller marijuana companies that will be folded into larger food and beverage conglomerates and big tobacco and big alcohol companies.
I love it. The Marlboro man is trading in his plaid Western shirt for a tie-dye t-shirt, I guess, right?
That's right. That it's Gallup polls show that consumers are increasingly have a negative view of alcohol and tobacco for obvious reasons.
Yes.
And while at the same time expressing a favorable view about marijuana. It's nothing short of a cultural revolution.
What a time to be alive.
That's right. That's right. And what a time to make profits, and especially in this bear market. Investors are frustrated and they're looking for new growth opportunities. And as 2022 draws to a close and we look at and 2023 looms on the calendar, and now's the time to start gaining exposure, at least incrementally, to some marijuana stocks. Every portfolio deserves exposure to the marijuana sector if you're looking for the next growth opportunity, the next big thing.
And your service, Marijuana Profit Alert, is there to help people, find these opportunities and also to keep up to date on them on a weekly basis.
That's right. I cover news, trends. I speak with insiders on a regular basis, whether they're insiders on Capitol Hill or in corporate suites. And I crunch a lot of data, put it through my proprietary investing screening system, and come up with the best possible pot stocks for people to invest in, where there's the right calibration between risk and reward.
That's great, John. How can people find out about Marijuana Profit Alert?
Look at the URL at the bottom of the article that accompanies this video on the Investing Daily website. Click the URL and it'll take you right to a page. It'll tell you everything you need to know.
Great. Thank you so much, John. It's always so much fun to talk to you.
Yeah, sure is. You take care, Kat. Thank you.
We need to get together for another falafel lunch sometime soon.
Yes, we do. It'll be on me.
Oh. Thank you.